there is a darkness upon the land. A savior is needed.
Who are you?
The man who'll kill Dracula.
Hello, welcome back to another episode, and today I'm going to be reviewing and talking about the Netflix Castlevania series, and I'm extremely excited about it because it's something that shouldn't exist. This is something that really honestly shouldn't exist. I don't know why it happened. I don't know the details of why Konami would allow someone to make a series on this property right now, because Konami, obviously, as you know, really hates gamers, apparently. Like, with everything they're doing with the pachinko machines and they trashed Kojima and Kojima Productions. That's why he left and, you know, started his own production studio, and he's currently working on Death Stranding, which looks amazing. Konami has a vast majority of older properties that they really could be using really well in making a bunch of different video games, and they're just not. All they're focusing on in Japan right now is pachinko machines and gambling and that kind of stuff, and they're letting all of their franchises kind of fall to the wayside. So then, why make a Castlevania series on Netflix? Why give somebody the reins to tell a story with these characters? I don't know. I'm not the person to answer that question. The only thing I can tell you is that I just literally finished watching the 4 episodes of Season 1 of Castlevania, the Netflix series, and I can tell you it's fantastic without a doubt. It is worth your time. If you're a fan of Castlevania, if you're a fan of older games, if you're a fan of anime, it's really good. I'm starting this channel, calling it Marble Gallery. Obviously, you know, I would have to review a Castlevania Netflix series. I'm going to review anything Castlevania related. I actually pulled out today one of my favorite possessions. I have an a la carte figure. I have, you know, a ton of Castlevania games. If you look at my wall here, one of my other prized Castlevania possessions is a boxed copy of Castlevania Bloodlines for Sega Genesis. Like, I'm a huge diehard fan of Castlevania, so when this was announced last December, it was extremely puzzling, and honestly, I didn't know if it would come together, because I sat here thinking, like, okay, what does Konami get out of this? Like, they've done so much shitting on gamers in the last year and a half. I don't know why they would give anybody the reins to make a Castlevania series or do something with one of their intellectual properties. It just doesn't make sense. It's weird, like, to come on the other end and tell you, like, as somebody who's not really an anime person, I like very select anime, but I'm not a huge anime guy. The real only animes that I really care for are one which I actually own on Blu-ray here is Cowboy Bebop. Another thing I'm a huge fan of, you've learned on this channel, is Gundam Wing and, you know, anything Gundam related. So I'm not a big anime guy. Like, I have a select anime thing, but when they announced this thing, you know, obviously, even though it's anime, you know, I don't really care. It's Castlevania, and I'll take anything Castlevania. And this thing's really good. It does not only a good job of taking ideas, apparently it follows, from what I can gather, from what I read this morning before I watched it, it basically is kind of telling a very embellished storyline of Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse for the NES. So it uses Trevor Belmont as the main character of this anime series. But what I really enjoyed about this, and again, there's only 4 episodes, each episode's like 24 minutes, it's not long. It's like, if you watch the whole thing in one sitting, it's like watching a 90-minute anime movie. That's fine. What I really liked about the beginning of it is the first episode just focuses on Dracula, and it focuses kind of humanizing him and giving him a reason to do what he does. And they kind of set it up as, like, you know, he had been here in his castle doing the horrific stuff he does, but not to the degree that you would normally think. And this woman, Lisa, shows up at the castle asking him, like, look, I'm a woman of science, I want to learn about the different scientific stuff that you know, so I can help the human race, essentially. And what happens is, obviously, he falls in love with her, and they get married, and that's his new wife, and she wants him to travel the world, and she's obviously helping him, you know, being able... I don't know, they don't go as far as to show him, like, in broad daylight, like, outside, but he's doing more traveling and trying to be more human than he normally is. And what happens is, obviously, the church gets a hold of this, and this is very true to these times. This series is set in the 1400s. And because this woman is, you know, doing things with science, they immediately look at her as a witch, so they burn her at the stake. And as she's kind of getting burned at the stake, she's kind of telling Dracula, like, dude, don't, you know, take revenge for me. They don't know what they're doing. And obviously, he's Dracula. He's going to get his revenge. So he shows up in a pretty fantastic sequence and just literally tells these people, look, I will give you 1 year to clean up your shit, and then I'm coming and I'm destroying everything because you burned my wife at the stake, and I'm pissed about that. And, I mean, basically, rather than do anything about that, the you know, church and the people in this village are just like, you know, or in this country, I should say, just are like, whatever, who cares? And so, exactly a year from then, they're literally holding a celebration for, like, burning his wife's body at the stake. And he shows up and is like, look, you, like, I gave you a year to clean everything up, and you're celebrating. And so he, like, goes nuts and sends off his army of people, and they bat-like creatures just destroy things. And it's really cool. It's really fascinating. I will say, like, this series, it is definitely R-rated. It is very violent at times. I mean, you'll actually see, like, children, infants and stuff getting killed, which is, I guess, probably not uncommon in the anime world. If this was a movie, it'd be kind of a sight to see for sure. But it's very well done, and that's what I enjoyed. And this is just the first episode, and that's what I enjoyed about the first episode, is they took the character of Dracula, they humanized him a little bit, they gave him a storyline, and I enjoyed that part of it. He doesn't really show up in the rest of it. And then the other 3 episodes are about Trevor. Trevor's cool. Richard Artiamage, I'm probably going to butcher this guy's name, is the voice of Trevor. You may know him from, he was in the Hobbit movies. He was the main dude in the Hobbit movies, not the main Hobbit, but like the main dwarf guy, whose name escapes me right now because I wasn't a huge fan of those Hobbit movies. And then he also, more recently, and something I would know, and if you're out there, this is a fantastic show you should watch, he was the Red Dragon in the television version of Hannibal, that the very, very short-lived, excellent TV show that you should have watched. It got canceled. I'm still upset that show got canceled because it was so well done. He does an excellent job of voicing he does an excellent job of voicing Trevor Belmont, and the guy, I didn't actually take notes here, sadly, but whoever's voicing the voice of Dracula, also excellent. Everybody on this voice cast does an excellent job. This voice acting is really solid. It's really well thought out. There's parts of this anime that are funny. It's not overly funny, but there's parts that I found myself chuckling at. But it's also incredibly serious. It takes this source material very seriously, which I can't stress enough. That's what I wanted it to be. In fact, my only real complaints with it are obviously the length of 4 episodes. It's kind of a nut punch because I wanted to see it be longer than that. I mean, and I don't know, like, are we getting more episodes this year? Am I going to have to wait until July of 2018 to see the next 8 episodes? They've already announced this morning they've renewed it for a second season. The second season is going to be 8 episodes instead of 4, which is a step in the right direction, but still, like, man, 4 episodes. Like, I wonder how long I'm going to have to wait because it's that good. My only other real complaint is they kind of portray the character of Trevor Belmont as a drunken idiot at first. For me, someone that doesn't really drink or anything, like, I can't relate to that at all. But they do a good job of kind of turning him around, and obviously there's a reason why he does what he does, and his whole family was kind of banished. You know, the Belmont clan was like the original demon and vampire slayers, and the church banished them because they didn't need them anymore. So he's kind of a outsider, and he's banished, and there's a really good scene in a bar in the beginning of like his story arc in the 2nd episode that kind of explains who he is and where he comes from. The other thing that I will say that is probably my favorite thing about this entire series is Alucard is in this, and he's done so incredibly well. tease him in the first episode. I already knew ahead of time that he was going to be involved in this, and obviously it's based on Dracula's Curse, which is the third Castlevania game, and he's in that, so it makes sense. But and if you don't know, Alucard is Dracula's son. The word Alucard is just Dracula backwards. It's a fantastic name. He shows up at the end because the whole idea here is when Trevor gets to this first town, and this town is getting terrorized by these bat creatures every night, there is a group of, like, I believe they're called Seekers, but they're like magicians essentially, but they're people, they're healers and magicians, but they can use magic to their help and to help and aid other people. But then obviously the church sees them also as vagrants and people that worship Satan, even though they're not like that. And so he meets up with these people, kind of saves. He has a really fantastic, the first time he uses his whip, it's a fantastic sequence. And after that, he helps save this one guy, and he brings him back to his clan and just says, look, I'm looking for my granddaughter. I haven't seen her. We sent her down to do something, and she hasn't come back. They assume that she's dead. So he kind of strikes up a deal with them, like, hey, if I go get her, I want you to leave this town, because shit's bad here, essentially. And he goes down, he finds her. She's basically been turned into stone by a Cyclops, so there's a whole sequence where he fights a Cyclops. Really well done. And then he brings her back to life, and then they go back up. She seems like a really cool character, too. I want to say her name's like Sylvia, but they say their names so fast. If there's one other complaint I maybe would have about this anime, it's that the voice acting, well, very good, very excellent. Sometimes it's a little soft-spoken, so it was hard to hear things, and I have surround sound here, and I had it jacked up, and I was having a hard time hearing some of the stuff they were saying. I don't want to spoil too much about it, but it definitely sets up, like, a good arc for this entire storyline to see where they're going to go with it. I liked everything about what I saw. I don't really have too much negative to say about it, other than, again, it's only 4 episodes, so it's not incredibly long, but you owe it to yourself to watch it. If you're a Castlevania fan like myself, if you're an anime fan, if you're a fan of, like, old Nintendo games, anything like that, it is not for kids, though. Do not watch it with kids. There's a lot of language. There's quite a few F-bombs. I was actually surprised at the amount of language in it, considering it is an anime, but, you know, some anime is more violent and language filled than other anime, so that was probably the one part about it that surprised me, but it is extremely violent, and it deals with some interesting subject matter, but so not for kids, but I really enjoyed it. You owe it to yourself to watch it. Again, it's on Netflix. It's 4 episodes. It's like watching a 90-minute movie. I really enjoyed it. Cannot wait for the second season of it. You know, go out and watch it. I think you'll have a good time with it. Anyways, guys, until next time.